Hey, everybody. It is time for the Draw Juice. Welcome to the Draw Juice universe. How's everybody doing? I am here to meet your art needs as best I can. And let me know if you can see me and hear me and all that good stuff. Let's see here. I'm going to share my screen. That's right. So I had a wonderful demo planned for you tonight, you guys. Hey, Nick, how you doing? And things did not work out according to plan. Have you ever had that happen? It happens in life. And so I can't follow through with what I was hoping to, which was a charcoal demo. That's unfortunate, but nevertheless, we will carry on. I'm grateful to be here, grateful to be with you all. And how's it going in your neck of the woods? What's happening with you guys? Let me know. Let me know where you're at, where you're from. Hey, Mika, welcome. It's awesome. Let me know if you can hear me and see me in the chat, the chatorama. I'm going to go over and look and see. Yes. I can see you guys. Okay, thanks, Nick. That's awesome. So as I was saying, I don't know if you guys heard, but I had a demo planned and it just did not go to plan because of technology. So I apologize for that. I was really excited. It's a lot, you guys, it's a lot of work to set up this stuff and have the cameras and the sound and the technology and the computer all working together. And you're like juggling, kind of like a juggler. And it can be a little overwhelming. So that's what happened. I've tried this setup before on Zoom, on Skype, and it works. So in this particular setup, it doesn't work going live with StreamYard. So I'm a little disappointed with StreamYard. It has some conveniences, but it has some drawbacks. So why don't we just get into this thing and start out with this lovely portrait from Mika. You know what I'm talking about? This is amazing. You keep growing like crazy. Who's watering you? Are you getting watered? Because you're sure looking good here. Every time it's getting better and better. That's pretty exciting. So I'm jazzed about this. I'm really happy. And you should be too, Mimika. Gosh. So I'm looking at this photo reference. It's a little bit low resolution. So it's hard to work from it. And you can kind of see the lights are washed out, right? It's really bright white there. And when a camera overexposes something, you lose information and it's very hard to get that back, right? So you can't see the details or the textures. You can, if you underexpose an image, you can retrieve sort of everything, just bringing up the exposure. But if you overexpose it and it's washed out, those details are lost. But nevertheless, working with this low resolution image, you got quite a nice picture here. I love the value range. The features, especially the eyes, look beautiful. The nose, mouth, everything's connected. composition, the background, details, all good, all solid. Um, and then, yeah, sense of lighting. It's wonderful. And then you have your form, your rendering that's showing off how light is interacting with this object. And you have your modeling vectors, right? And so all the fundamentals are really, you're covering those things and it's working out great. You get a little catch light in the eyes, right? That makes that thing look alive, that there's a person there. And one thing I noticed, you're making her a little bit older, it appears to me, just by adding some wrinkles under her eyes and the crow's feet, right? On the lateral part of the eyes. And then here, a little bit. So if you add wrinkles or lines or edges, too many, right? The more you add, the more age you put on your person, your character, your sitter, your model. So every line you put on there is going to age it a little bit. Okay, so just remember that. You may have wanted to do that, and that's fine if you wanted to do that. If someone's critiquing your work and they criticize something, well, you can just say, "I meant to do that." Okay, and that is who can criticize that, right? So that's a little trick. Is just I wanted it that way. It's dark or it's off or it's it looks older because I was intending that. Okay, so but I don't know if you were intending this or not. So just let me know in the chat, and I will respect that because you were intending to do that. Hey Jessica, what's happening? Oh yeah, Juan Double R. How you doing, Juan? Nice to see you. So, but this is just lovely. I love the hair and everything as well. And that sense of lighting, you dealt with this overexposed photo and very well. Like the expression, the smile, it's looking good. If I was going to just try to improve upon it, right? That's why we're here. So we're going to try to improve upon this. And I would say in this eye socket, it's a little bit darker, right? Because you have a corner in there. And that looks a little dark. Maybe a hint darker of that edge to show the structure. And then right where there's the compression of fold meeting the bone, right in here. Can you see that? Let me take this texture off. There's a real dark occlusion shadow right in there. See that? In here. Wherever two pieces of skin come together in a fold, in a compression, even with material and clothes, you'll get an occlusion shadow where the light can't quite get in there. And that's something you can sneak in there just to create a little bit of depth in the eyes. What did I want to say about that? Then there's a little bit of a darker value on the lower lid. It's not so much wrinkles in there, but just kind of a plane that doesn't catch the light. as it moves towards the right, as it moves towards the center left, it does get the light. So you can express some volume because of the change in value is signaling kind of a plane change. Remember, different value, different plane, and the planes and the edges are instrumental in expressing 3D form, right? The planes and the edges are instrumental in how the form comes across to us in real life and as artists, just understanding that. So there's, you can do you can put a little bit there, and maybe I would soften up the wrinkles a little bit, just soften them up, especially on pretty women, babies, kids. Let me try a little trick here. The spot healing brush or the healing brush tool. I have to sample somewhere. Sample a light area and then bring it in. Okay, so that's one way you can try. The healing brush tool, same thing. Okay. There's some little tricks that you can use for photography. Use them in your illustrations. Now this thing will paint a dark line and it'll try to remove spots. So if you have some little spots, you can just try to remove them. It's not perfect. But it works a lot of times. If I use it right on that same layer, then it works. It kind of smooths things out. So just try that. And another one is the patch tool. The patch tool, let's see. If I wanted to try and remove some of this irregularity here, I can encircle it with my lasso tool and then move it over to an area that's smoother and lighter. And it'll kind of, it's supposed to fix that. Let me just bring this down here. Merge these layers. Okay, let's try it again. See that? So it kind of just takes that, I'll do it again. Takes this thing, and I'll just move it, and it'll substitute the lighter, smoother stuff, right? So that's another little trick you can do. There is a way to, once you select something and move it, to soften the edges. I forget what the command is. It's like F something, and you can smooth out that. Okay. So just take out some of the wrinkles, and those are some of the tools. Don't neglect these, spot healing brush, patch tool, content aware, but these three are really good, especially if you're doing digital stuff. Let me just back out of some of that stuff. Then maybe here too, these impressions on the side of her face where she's smiling could be a little bit softened. Make it small, right? See if it reads. And right in here, there's something a little bit missing that's making her jaw neck connection not as, let's say realistic as it might be, as it could be. So I'm going to just burn a little bit in here with the burn tool and just see if I can sneak in a little bit of a occlusion, shadow there. So you can select to burn the highlights, the midtones, or the shadows. And these are kind of midtones in here, so I'll just select that. And it won't burn, it won't really touch the highlights too much. It'll burn into the midtones and shadows if I select midtones. And then there's an occlusion shadow right under here. Do you see that? This here. Under her chin. So there's an occlusion shadow. Then there's a reflected light. Then there's a core shadow. So do you see that? I hope you can see that because that's like really good stuff. So you have a highlight and then a like a half tone in here. And then you have a core shadow, a CS right here. And then you have reflected light. And then you have the cast shadow. And within that, you have the occlusion shadow right there. Okay, so those are your modeling factors: highlight, halftone, core shadow, reflected light, cast shadow, occlusion shadow. You should know those like the back of your hand. If I wake you up from sleep, Mamika, and everybody, and I'll ask you what's the modeling factors, you should just say highlight, half light, core shadow, reflected light, cast shadow. Okay, you must know that. Okay, so go back to my burn tool and just sneak in a little bit there, if I might. Pen pressure, transfer. Okay. Pretty subtle, right? You're ready for that next level of subtle. So at first, you're putting down the big shapes, the big angles, the big impression. You're not going for details, textures, and you're staying really zoomed out, so to speak. Then when you get to the finishing level, then you're getting subtle. Like your communication with this stuff is like choosing, descriptive words for a poem, right? And sentence structure. You're really fine tuning it to get that meaning across in your poem. It's kind of, you're choosing those words carefully, you're crafting everything. That's sort of like the stage that you're in at this stage. You're finishing, you're checking everything, you're making sure where it's supposed to be subtle, it's very subtle, not noticeable, barely perceptible. And then in areas where it's supposed to be bold, it's really bold. In areas where it needs to be chiseled and square, it's clearly that. And where it's supposed to be round, it's clearly that. So I don't know if that helps. If you put in a little bit of that core shadow right there in the chin. I'm on the wrong layer here. Right, that kind of helps. You get those modeling factors going for you. I'm going to select on the stamp tool and see if I can. Since I want to select all layers here. just reclaim some of that texture that you did. So there's a lot of going back and forth. There's a lot of looking, recalibrating, adding value, right? As soon as I added some of that stuff, then I had to add a little bit more, right? So it's recalibrating. Now it's kind of getting kind of dark. Because it looks a little too digital here. Let's see. That's it. Very subtle stuff. And I think you're just getting so much better. It looks so cool. So congratulations. I think it's awesome. Can't wait to see what you're going to do next and stuff like that. This line right here around her collar, it's a little bit of a different style. So you have a realistic rendered style for her face, and then this stuff goes into a flat 2D look, like a designy look. I think that's cool. So it's not, not a big deal, but I think this line here is a little heavy right there. So you might want to adjust that. And maybe take some of this detail and finish it into here, or somehow take this line out. Like maybe this line kind of, don't attract attention to it, quiet it down so we don't look over there so much. Because it's just a little attracting too much attention maybe, and taken away from the beautiful face. And that line is a little bit catching my attention. But that's just maybe a style thing. You might want that in there. Know what I'm saying? All right, so let's see. With that, I wanted to just say about the eye, if I could maybe illustrate that a little bit, that the eye socket, you've got that keystone, right? The glabella, keystone, the root of the nose. Looks like a necktie, right? And then you've got the eyeball in there somewhere. So that's going to compress. It's going to be hidden right up against the bone there. And then there's kind of a thickness to the inside of the eye socket, right? If we were to really break it down into simple primitive shapes with clear tops and sides and bottoms, maybe it's something like that. So there's this, structure in here. That's kind of what I wanted to say, that's why I wanted it to be a little clearer on that edge, where there was an opportunity to put some structure in there, because it's pretty lit very lightly. And it's a woman, so there's not a lot of edges and wrinkles and lines and stuff. But so where there is an opportunity, to show a plane change, right? Maybe it's because it's a shadow, go ahead and do it. That was kind of my thought about that. I hope that that's clear. I hope it helps. And then you're just wrapping around the upper lid and lower lid around the eyeball and all that good stuff. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay, so this one is a Sargent study. So that is a great move to do this. So I'm thinking that the angle of your phone taking the picture, the angle of the light is making the graphite a little gray, it seems to me. And so it has a sheen to it, kind of a shine. And I'm wondering, if I do a little adjustment on the computer, I could reclaim some of those arcs. Okay. So let's see. Looks good. I'm not catching some of the subtleties because of the angle of the light, but the proportions look good, and some of these, you've got a likeness here, which is because of the shape of the face, and I like the structure that you're putting into the eyes, nose. It's very subtle what he's kind of doing with the pencil work. It's right, because he's really heavy with the background, and then he has really subtle halftones in here. So most of the texture is in the wall behind, in the hair, and then everything else with this beautiful lady, right? There's not a lot of wrinkles, textures, and he's keeping those halftones very light. It's easy to get really dark and muddy, dirty looking stuff if you get out of value, especially on children, right? Pretty ladies. You got to keep those halftones, unless there's a real heavy shadow. Got to keep them real subtle. I don't know if that makes any sense. Hey, Mita Galverio, how you doing? Esquiltor. Escli. Can't say that name. Oh my God. Can I get the model? Yo, David. All right. So let's see if I can think of something here that can help. He's got kind of a two read where he's got the hair and the background merged together. And whatever you merge together is going to quiet down, and whatever you separate out is going to get the attention. Right? So the background and the hair, they're the same value pretty much. Overall dark. And so he's brought the background and the hair into the same family. And so they've compressed. And he's separating out the face. Right? And so the hair and the background, he's sort of joined them together. So you've got kind of a compressed look. It's almost like light on a dark background. So, you can have dark on light. You can have light on dark. Let's see. You can have a figure, dark figure on a light background. Or you can have a light figure on a dark background. So kind of like light on dark. This is just kind of like the graphic read. Okay. And then you can have kind of a full value character on a light background. Right? So they have light, dark, and every value in between. So that's full value on light background. Or you can have full value on a dark background. And you can have a middle, let's say a middle value character on a full value background, So your background could have, dark and light accents. Let's say there's a shadow coming through, cutting across. And then there's just some random things in the background. So you have kind of a middle value breaking away from a full value. And those are kind of like 4 different options you can have. Then the other thing you can do is do a gradation. Right? So you could gradate this thing from top left to bottom right? Or the way around, bottom right to top left, or left to right, or right to left. It depends on the narrative and what you want to show. Now, if I gradate this thing from bottom to top, you notice the head first and the body after that. If I gradate it from top to bottom, you notice the body first, the head later. Okay, so I'm using this gradation as another way to suggest rendering where there isn't, really much at all. So I can do bottom right to top left, and then left to right. And I can really fine tune where you start to look just at the shoulder, right? That right shoulder, because that's the narrative. I want you to see there's some clue there. There's something important, right? So just by using a gradation, no rendering at all, I can art direct this piece, right? And get you to look where I want you to. The same thing here. I can gradate this thing, again, from the bottom, so you notice the top, from top right, so you notice bottom left. So these are ways, they're like vignettes, basically, okay, that you would use in your photography. So here is kind of a little bit like that in terms of how he's choosing to merge the background and the hair and then concentrate on the face. Well, very subtly. I mean, he did a lot of work in the hair, actually. So with this hair, you know, you could go a bit darker in here. Put some texture in that. More like traditional, right? So there's just no real hard shadows in there. And then he gets to some areas where he really mixes up. You can see the lines, and they're really obvious. And so he's kind of playing with this different texture. So he's got smooth texture against rough texture. He's got lines against areas of relative quiet. He's got dark against light. And so it creates a lot of interest for me and for the viewer. And so that's fun. That's somewhat easy to do with charcoal, is to create this kind of texture. So let me check the chat here. Okay, you guys are just chatting. Yeah, good Meta. Good to have you. Good to have you guys here. Let's see. If we go to the eyes, and we go a little bit darker. And I think you got the angle pretty good of this. Could go back just a little bit because that eyebrow is, the eye socket is protecting the eye. So the eye needs to sit inside of that brow pretty well. You know, it's not right here by the nose, right? It's definitely more back. So leave room for that. Good. So I think maybe, maybe the sheen from the light is kind of affecting this, because it's hard for me to see kind of what's going on in here in terms of the subtleties. Right? And when you get, into the neck, it's got to be hatching. Just really careful hatching. Describing the cylinder of the neck. Just to bring a little bit of form into it. Pretty subtle. And then on the edges of the hair, let's say, you can bring out some individual hairs. Right? So inside is just a shape. And then when you get to the edges, communicate with shapes or lines that's characteristic of that thing. So if you're doing a tree, the inside of the tree can be very, just a shape, right? But then when you get to the the outside part, the contour of the silhouette, you can, bring out a branch and show some shapes. And so that's kind of a way of You don't have to draw every leaf. You don't have to draw every hair. But the outer edge of the contour is very, very important. It's kind of, I don't know, seems to be a great place to use detail. And inside, the silhouette and the shape and the value carry the day, you know. Let's see. So, yeah, very nice job. Great benefit studying the masters, you know, seeing how they did it. How did they handle the background? Did they hatch like Sargent did here, one direction? Did they cross hatch? Did they smudge it? What tool were they using? You know? So that's cool. All right, let's move on to this one here. Okay, I didn't have a reference photo for this one. So looks like it's done on tone paper with some white added to it. And I'm thinking that, the lighting is coming from the top left. Okay. So light's coming this way. Because I see the shadow here, right? And so I think I would see a heavier shadow on everything that's turning towards the right and down. You would get a heavier shadow. So everything's kind of middle though. It's like being afraid of the dark and not going dark enough. And so it lacks kind of that 3D pop, that form, and value is the key to doing that for us. And it looks like there's, quite a bit of light because we have these highlight areas, right? And so, but every light has a dark. So almost like an equal and opposite dark, that it's like every Luke Skywalker has a Darth Vader. So every light has a dark, and they're in this binary relationship. So if they're not set up in that binary way, it destroys the illusion of form. So you've got a beautiful touch. It's very light and sensitive, and yet it needs to be pushed, like in this area here, so that that nose pops off the page a little bit. Don't be afraid of the dark. Okay? The dark is your friend. Sounds kind of scary, huh? The dark is your friend. Wants to be your neighbor. Okay. Tell me in the chat if that was a little bit creepy. Okay, but so if you stay in a very high key range, you're going to get a certain look, so if you just use part of the value range, like this, it's what's called a high key. So think of music. If you're in a high key, the music's very high and bright and happy, let's say. And so this high key communicates, let's say, peacefulness, happiness, friendliness, right? Because there's not a lot of darks there. You know what I mean? I think that makes sense. So if you had a character in a movie, you would want, let's say, one to be the hero could be very bright and the villain could be dark, and you'd have that contrast. And in your piece, if you don't want that contrast, that drama, and you want it to be all peace and calm, like a Hallmark card, then you can use part of the value range. Okay. So you wouldn't use all this stuff down here. Okay. Because that communicates something else, right? So if you just used this dark stuff down here and you didn't use the white stuff, then what are you going to have? You're going to have a dark, moody piece. And if you use the full value range, you're going to have much more drama, expression, form, and you have a range that you could communicate within. So just kind of knowing what it is you want to communicate can be done through value very effectively. It's like high notes and low notes in music. Okay, so I'm just going through and thinking where I can bring in some of the dark and not having the photo reference. I'm just kind of winging it here. The terminus of the lips, right, where there's that compression, they go into fit into the masculine node. Those areas are dark. So you have, I'm not just going to come in and draw, a line for the lips, right? Don't do that. But you've got this Cupid's bow here, and then the terminus here, the compression of the ends. Those areas are pretty dark. And so keep your dark values to those areas. Because everything else is real subtle on lips. So right there. And then we have the lower lip kind of fitting into and coming out from that upper lip. And then this here is the tubercle. It's that Cupid's bow thing. So there's an overlap on the upper lip to the wing. So this kind of tubercle thing overlaps the wing, and the wing comes out from behind. So there's that little bit of shadow there. It's kind of like what I did right there. So my modeling factors, I can get in here and create a core shadow. And then following is a cast shadow, just like the twin brothers, brother and sister, following each other. Day. And I'm just going to unify my shadows. The more I can unify, the more simple I can be, the better. If I can't, if I try to draw and reproduce a photo, my drawing is going to be stiff and it's going to look stiff and it's going to make the process harder and I might not end up at a great place. So if I realize I can't match the beauty that I see in the photo or in the world around me, and I concentrate on the big shapes, the big forms, not the textures and details, I'm going to be in a better place. I'll end up in a better place. And I want to be more in love with the dance, with the process. I can bring textures in, I can bring movement in that aren't in the photo. And that brings me joy because I'm bringing something new to it. I'm bringing myself and something new and injecting that and creating something new. And that's what we should do. We have the opportunity to do that as artists, is to make something a little bit better than the photo in a different way. Does that make sense? Not easy to do. Let's see here. I'm just, bringing in some darks here and there. Thinking it through. If I think about the light direction and how the forms are interacting with the light, then I can think my way through a lot of different things and become a visual problem solver instead of a visual copier, And nothing wrong with copying if we know that we're doing it, and we're learning from it. Let's see here. Just thinking about that light direction, thinking about the planes, thinking about my lighting factors. Thinking about my overlaps. So much fun. So much fun. Right, a little core shadow, a little reflected light, a little occlusion shadow there. See, I don't need the reference as much because I'm just thinking, oh, there's the chin, it's kind of round. The light is coming from the top left, so its partner in that binary relationship of light and dark is going to be on the right and under. So I can put dark there in this universe. So there's kind of an agreement that you have with the viewer. And if you break that agreement, you break that little contract, then the viewer gets confused. So you've got to be consistent with it in order for your communication to really be clear and keep their interest. That would be, go, we could never stop. We could just go and go and go and never stop. And then if I thought about my shadows and my modeling factors, and I know that there's an umbra and a penumbra, maybe I could inject some of that into there, right? So I have a kind of a more crisp umbra here, and then as it moves away, it's soft, the penumbra. I can put that in there. Maybe that'll, just every little thing that I do, hopefully adds up and makes it more and more realistic. Ed, I think you did a nice job on the nose. Looks real beautiful. Here, I think that cheek would get more light on the top. See if I can, right, because the light's coming from the top left. I'm going to try and make this a little bit bigger for you. Yeah. Okay. Right, so it's going to get more light on this corner right here, because that's the top plane facing the light, and then this stuff's going down away from the light. Okay, same thing here. So I'm thinking about that. Where would the shadow be then? The plane of this lower lid is facing away from the light. So just thinking about it, right? And that can be a pretty crisp division right there between the lower lid and the cheek. And it comes back a little bit here. And so eventually you kind of get to be able to where, you're checking out your reference, but then you're looking at your drawing. You're concentrating on, your craft, and you're making an original piece of art, Nice job on the transition here between the hair and the forehead. That looks awesome. And what you did here on the eyebrows looks great. It's nice and soft. Beautiful job. Maybe a little bit rounder right there. And if you bushy up the eyebrows, the thicker the eyebrows, the younger the person is going to appear. So take a look at some Disney characters and stuff and check their eyebrows. Tell me if that's true. Yeah, looking fun, looking good. And the neck to be a little slimmer, because I have the artistic license. Then there's going to be an occlusion shadow between the hair and the neck. It'll just be a subtle gradation there. So I didn't put the nose holes in there, but you could sneak those in there, but why bother for this? So that's good. Let's see. David says, yeah, I'm going slowly, getting there. Yeah, David, is that okay? That was yours, the Sargent thing, right? Was that yours? Yeah, you're getting there. Flashlight for David so he could walk in the darkness. Ooh. Hey, Sampico, what's happening? What's the good word over there? And as I, take a break and I come back to my drawing, then I notice, oh, I could add a little bit of something here, a little bit of shadow from the hair onto the cheek. Push that ear back a little bit in space. Right? Always kind of put something on, take it off. Put something on, take it off. Can't make up my mind. Cool. We kind of went from there. It's a little bit washed out, kind of high key. And then we went to here. We add a little bit more depth in the eyes, a little bit more structure. And that helped us out. So that's my interpretation of your drawing, not knowing the photo reference at all. And just having fun. Right? Right. Okay, cool. All right. You got any questions here? We got a lot of fun going on in the chat. That's good. Drink water. I think I want to talk a little bit about, if I can find it, the process we were talking about with the battle for creativity. And we've been going through this. I don't know if you can see my screen right now. Yeah. Okay. Let's just go through this, because we've been barreling our way through this thing, talking about the design battle and the fight for creativity. And we've talked about these sort of important allies that we have to counter the enemies that we have in drawing, because every time we go towards something we love and we want to pursue, things pop up, right? Isn't that the way it is? Life gets in the way, things pop up, preventing us. Talking to you guys, I know it happens for me. It happened tonight. I wanted to do a nice demo for you, and some things popped up. So let us keep going into this, because these are the tools that are going to help you in this war of art. So we talked last time about the silhouette. It was that outer contour, that flat shape, cut out almost a puzzle piece. that it's the read. The read is emotional. It's instant. And with games, with movies, and with portrait art, you want well, it depends on what you're trying to do, what's the function, but you want things to read clearly. Um, there is room for subtlety, for sure. Um, and so you can have areas that are subtle. You don't have to hit somebody over the head with the kitchen sink all the time. But it is nice to be able to be clear when you want to and subtle when you want to sort of have that control. So the silhouette, if you want something to read clearly, then use that silhouette and make sure it does read. And you can look at it really small and see if it holds up. If it doesn't, then keep working on that silhouette. So you're designing, they call it from the outside in. You're not starting with the details. You're starting with that silhouette, and then you're infusing details and textures and pulling architecture from that. All right, let's go to proportion. So silhouette and proportion are the most important things in terms of design, especially with character design and with caricatures, especially the proportion. So proportion is all about size relationships. It's a relationship of the parts to themselves and the parts to the whole. So the balance of your size and shapes one to another give your design visual interest. So if you go big, medium, small, big, small, medium, medium, big, small, you just start to mix up your shapes just with the rules of three, just simple shapes. You're going to be able to do a lot and create interest in the viewer, right? So keep it simple, right? Alternating proportions and playing with the shapes. So let's take a look. Top row here, we have this alien. And if we go left to right, we have sort of, well, in the middle, we have sort of a maybe normal proportions. If we go to the left, it's compressed. If we go to the right, it's stretched. It's blown up in the eyes and the nose. So you can kind of see by playing with these things. Let's go down here. You've got the normal gun, the a little bit larger gun, and then the abnormally large gun. And you can kind of see what works. So if you have a client and they say, I want you to design, this woman holding a gun, and you give them one option, they're not going to be so happy as if you give them three options. One is the normal world option. Okay, it's pretty typical what you would see, correlates to daily reality. And then you give them something a little to the left and to the right of that. So you make it a little bit smaller, and then you make it a little bit bigger or a lot bigger. So you're playing with the scale of stuff. And it helps if you put a little bounding box around what you're trying to design. It shows the proportion better than if you just have the open blank page. So the rules of three, big, medium, small, you can start to play around with your design. Readability, okay, that's the level of detail. So let's look at this. If you think of detail as kind of like the supporting actor to your overall design, it's like frosting on a cake. So you've got the cake, right? You've got the foundation, and the frosting is just there. It could be vanilla, it could be chocolate, it could be vanilla and chocolate, it could be strawberry, it could be all kinds of stuff. But that's the surface level, and that's this detail. So, if you don't have a strong design, no amount of detail is going to help. And that's something we all trip over because we think detail is it. It's not. So Again, if you put too much frosting on a bad cake, it's not going to make the bad cake taste good. So you can use detail or levels of detail to create a focal point in your design or in your portrait. Where you want someone to look, put the detail there and play everything else down. So if you don't want someone to look somewhere, play it down. Okay. So you can also use detail to create visual flow through a design and alternate areas of detail with areas of no detail. So you have areas of activity that you've given your audience to really look at as a treat. And then you have areas of passages of flat, relatively with no detail, so the eye can rest. And I don't know about you, but I don't like going to a museum too much because I get exhausted. There's too much detail. Every room is chock full of paintings and sculptures and color, and I just get tired with that. So uh, that can be overwhelming. Same thing with your drawing and painting. You can overwhelm the viewer and tire them out with too much detail everywhere. So for example, in this character up in top, example A, too much detail. It's a poor read. You can't tell where his head stops and his shoulders. Everything runs together where the coat stops and the garment continues. It's just kind of overload, right? But if we take out some detail and edit things out, drawing is so much about editing that now you're alternating areas of detail with areas of rest, right? And that makes a better read. Here it's all confusing and sort of in the middle kind of value. Here we have dark, middle, and light values and nice clear shapes. So the head, right, is full value, clear, nice details. And then against the coat, it's relatively flat and simple. And then we pick up with this garment underneath with areas of detail. Then against the leg, the ankles, they're flat and clear. And then the sandals, again, with the detail. So look at this knife here. The bottom one, detail all over the place. And you might like that. It's kind of a gaudy style, where there's just everything, every jewel, every color, every texture. It's cool. But then you could have areas of rest and then detail, then rest and then detail. So you're alternating. It's called counterbalance in detail language. So you're countering and back and forth with the areas of detail. So I kind of like that. I prefer that. And then this area where there's most of the contrast, most detail, most texture, and most value range, your eye goes there first. Then it might go here to the handle and then through to the blade, right? So you can art direct these things with just these simple tools. And that is, I love that. Let me see, I'm going to check here. Oh, Juan, I didn't see your drawing. What did you put in here? Try to be a little bit earlier with that, or otherwise I can't get to. Oh, I see. It's probably going to get to it next time. Try to throw it in there a little bit longer, okay, Juan? I'll get it to it next time, okay? Yeah. Just give me a little heads up, okay? That would be good. Yeah, Meta says going to the museum does the same with her. She gets exhausted, overwhelmed. I found that to be disappointing as an artist to feel that way in a museum because I want to see everything, but I just felt like, man, everything is too much. So there's art like that, like game art. Let me see. what's some game art? Japanese game art, Korean game art. They have detail everywhere. They just can't help themselves. It's overload. And so you kind of run the risk of confusing and overwhelming your viewer, and they just kind of turn off, right? But some people like that, maybe that's a kind of an Eastern thing versus Western thing. Trying to think of that famous Final Fantasy, right? The Japanese game, Final Fantasy. Beautiful stuff, awesome designs, but like everything is there in stark relief. You know, I don't know what your favorite games, guys, are, or what you're into at all. If you're into games at all. So let's see here. I'm thinking that is gonna be it. Man, that was fun. I'm gonna try and figure out next time my camera problems and my technical problems, and so I can get you guys a demo. That would be so much fun. And I'm so glad you guys came tonight. Thanks for being here. Just if you're new here, I critique students' drawings and talk about art and do demos. So please support the channel by giving it a like and a subscribe, and give a comment in the comments down below. That really helps push the video out there, and it's a cheap way to support my channel. Is just by subscribing. You can head over to drawjuice.com and get some of the courses that I have there for drawing the head, drawing the hair, and creating characters. What else? I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I'm sure glad you guys were here. Great to spend time with you. You're welcome, Amika. Thanks for being here. Zoran, thanks for coming. Right on. Less is more. Meta, you're welcome. Yeah, Juan, we'll get you next time. Okay. Make sure to come on back. And I wish you guys all the best this week. Stay safe. Thanks, Jessica. Great to see you, Sampico. And I will shut it down for now. All right. See you guys. God bless. Bye-bye.